Welcome back to educator.com. For the next lesson, we're going to go over the circumference of a circle. Okay, so first, let's go over some segments, some special segments in circles, within circles. The first is the radius. Radius is a segment whose endpoints are on the center and on the circle. Okay, so then one endpoint is on the center, and the other endpoint is on the circle. So here, this segment CB or BC, doesn't matter which way, is a radius. CA, okay, that's also a radius. I can say CA, I can say CB, I can say EC, okay, those are all each of those are radius. Plural for radius is radii. Okay. The next special segment is the diameter. Diameter is a segment whose endpoints are on the circle, and it has to pass through the center. Okay, so it's like a radius. It's like two radius put together like this, back to back, okay, to form a straight segment where each of the endpoints are on the circle. That is a diameter. So here, EB, that is a diameter. And that's the only one for here. Now DF, that even though that segment has endpoints on the circle, it's not passing through the center, right? So that's not considered a diameter. That's actually called a chord. So chord is like a diameter. Diameter and chords, they both are similar in that they have their endpoints on the circle, but diameter has to pass through the center, and chords do not. Okay, so this is a chord, and this is a diameter. So again, this is a radius, this is a diameter, and then chord, this is a chord. Endpoints on the circle without passing through the center. Okay, that's a chord. So the circumference is like perimeter. Now we know perimeter is when you add up all the sides of some polygon, right? So circumference acts as a perimeter, but it's like the perimeter of a circle, because circles, we don't have straight sides, right? So instead of calling this perimeter, we call it circumference. But it's pretty much the same thing. It's like you wrap around, right? So it's like if you were to we need to build a fence around this garden. Then we will call that perimeter, right? Because you're going around like this, okay? Let's say your garden's round, like this. Then it's not called perimeter anymore, it's called circumference. Okay, but it's the same concept, same idea. Distance around the circle. And you find that by multiplying the radius by 2 and multiplying that by pi. So it's 2 times pi times the radius. Okay, now when you multiply numbers together, see how we're just multiplying 3 numbers together? 2 and the pi and the radius. Whenever you multiply, it doesn't matter the order. So if we want, we can do 2 times pi times the radius, or we can do radius times 2 times pi, or pi times radius times 2. Okay, so the order doesn't matter when you multiply. So, in short, this is circumference is 2 pi r. Okay, 2 pi r. Since the order doesn't matter, since we're multiplying these 3 numbers together, I can do 2 times r times pi, right? Now 2r, if I take a radius and I multiply it by 2, so that's 1, and then here's another one, right? This is 2 times the radius, right? R plus R is same thing as 2 times R. Doesn't this become the diameter, right? So if we take 2 radius, this can also be diameter. So we can also say circumference is diameter times pi. Okay, so then this actually has 2 formulas. Circumference can be 2 times the pi times the r, or it could be, since 2 times the r equals the diameter, 2 times the radius is the diameter, we can just say the diameter times pi. So it doesn't matter which one we use. It depends on what they give us. So if we're given the radius, then we can just, use 2 pi r. They give us the diameter. You can just go ahead and multiply that by pi. Since you have to divide it to find the r, and then you have to multiply the 2 anyways. So if you're given radius, just use that. If you're given diameter, just use that. Okay? So again, 2 times the pi times the radius. And pi is 3.14. 3.14. It's actually longer, but you only have to use the 3.14. Okay, so the first example, we're going to name the given parts of the circle. First is the chord. Now remember, chord is a segment whose endpoints are on the circle, but it doesn't pass through the center, right? So there's an endpoint on the circle. There's an endpoint on the circle. So a chord, I can say ED. Okay, it doesn't matter if I say DE. Or I could say AB or BA. Okay. The diameter to both endpoints on the circle, so 1 and 2, and it passes through the center, right? So BE would be a diameter, and another one, AD is a diameter. And then for a radius, remember radius is an endpoint on the center, an endpoint on the circle. So that would be a radius. So I can say CD. I can say BC. Okay, I can say AC. I can say EC. I can say CE. Okay, find the circumference of the circle. Now this, in the circle, this is the center. The radius, this is the radius, is 5. The circumference of a circle is 2 times pi times r, the radius. So it's 2 times pi is 3.14 times 5. Okay, now if you want, we can multiply this and this first, right? Remember, the order doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can multiply this times this and then to that. It doesn't matter, but I know that if I multiply 2 times the 5, then I get 10, right? And 10 is an easy number to multiply with. So C is 10 times 3.14. So I need to multiply these two numbers together. So 3.14 times 10, okay, 0. And 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, from here, since I'm multiplying, how many numbers do I have behind decimal points? I only have 2, right? So I'm going to, in my answer, put the decimal point in front of 2 numbers. So it's 31.4 or 31.40. It's the same thing. I can just drop the 0 if I want to because it's behind the decimal point and at the end of a number, right? Okay, so circumference is 31.4 or 31.40. Now, when I multiply by 10, there's a shortcut way of doing this. When you multiply by 10, you you see how many zeros there are. So 10 has only one zero. You take the decimal point and you're going to move it one space because there's one zero. Now, to determine if you're going to move it to the left or to the right, if we're multiplying, don't we have to get a bigger number, right? If we're multiplying by 10, so our number has to get bigger. If I move the decimal point to the left, my number is going to get smaller, right? Because 0.3 is not the same, right? I want a bigger whole number. So I have to move it to the right to make my number bigger. So that's going to be 31.4. Okay, so if let's say I'm going to multiply by 100. 100 has two zeros, right? Then you would move it two spaces to the right to make it bigger. So it's going to be 1, 2. It's going to be 314. It's going to be my answer. Okay, so that's my circumference here. And let's move on to the next problem. Okay, find the circumference of each circle with the given measure. So the first one, the radius is 9 inches. Circumference equals 2 pi r. 2 times pi times r. 2 pi is 3.14. The radius is 9. Okay, now again, I like to multiply these two numbers first. You don't have to. You can multiply this times this and then take that and multiply it to this again. 18, 2 times 9 is 18, times 3.14. Okay, so now I have to multiply these two numbers, right? So it's 3.14 times 18. 4 times 8 is 32. Times 1 is 8, plus 3 is 11. This is 24, 25. 1 times 4 is, I'll put a 0 out there, right? 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. I can go ahead and add. 2 plus 0, 2. This is 5. This is 6. And this is 5. Okay. Within my problem, how many numbers do I have behind decimal points? I have 2. So from here, I'm going to go 1, 2, place 2 numbers behind the decimal point, my answer. So my circumference becomes 56.52 inches. Okay. It's not inches squared. Only area is squared, units squared. So circumference, you just leave it as 62.52 inches. And the next one, the diameter is 16 centimeters. Now, remember, if this is the formula, 2 times r becomes the diameter, right? 2 times radius is diameter. So I can just go ahead and say this formula is the same thing as diameter times pi. Okay, so diameter is 16. 16 times 3.14. So here, 3.14 times 16. 6 times the 4 is 24. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 6 times 3 is 18. Place a 0 there. 1 times 4 is 4. Times 1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Add. This is 4. 8 plus 4 is 12. 8, 9, 10. 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then from here I have 2 numbers total behind decimal points, right? So I'm going to go 1, 2. So for this one, my circumference is 50.24 centimeters. My circumference here, and this is my circumference here. Okay. And that is it for this lesson. Thank you for watching educator.com.